Hey, you just tuned in to 5 Lakes Garage, and today we're going to be doing some wiring. And what are we going to do it on? The 1980 CJ5 Jeep. Now, we do call this thing the pumpkin because, well, it's orange. It's orange. Alright, so what we're actually doing today is actually going to wire up the lockers. If you caught some of the other videos in this series, I installed lockers on the AMC20, which would be in the rear, and I installed a locker in the Model 30 in the front. Now, both of them are from Auburn, and they are E-Lockers. Now, when you have to do an E-Locker, you gotta have a switch, you gotta have power, and you gotta put it in there. And there's certain ways you actually have to hook it up, or else it's not gonna work. So, looking at what they actually give you in the package, it's actually pretty decent. It gives you all the bare minimums to actually get it done. What do they come up with? Well, most important, they have instructions. They also have a switch and gives you a nice diagram on how to wire it up. So this is your switch. With that, well, you need a ground, which they give you that. They give you a power cable. They give you fuses. They give you inline fuses. They get the connector to be able to connect up to your heavy duty power wire to the actual locker itself. And I'm going to show you how to route that here in a little bit. Now, the two wires are coming off the locker, we're going to be putting inside there and then locking them in place here. Now, this is a watertight connector. Other things they will give you is, little connectors for your fuse box, so you can actually get an ACC power to these. You do not want to connect this directly to the battery. At least that's what the instructions say. We're not going to put it to the battery. We're actually going to install a fuse box and actually do it the way I want to do it, rather than what they have here. But you're more than welcome to do exactly what they say in the book. So what actually we're going to do here at 5 Lakes Garage is we're going to take this and we're going to stick it in the bin, because we don't need it for what we're actually going to use. We're going to do it slightly different. All right, I'll get everything set up and I'll show you exactly what we're going to do. All right, got everything out. It's very simple. What I'm going to do is actually connect it up to the fuse box so I can get my signal. Is install one of these guys. Now, this is going to be a separate fuse panel, or block rather, that is going to run off of ACC. So as soon as you turn on the power, it's going to turn on. Now, there's 5 connections to this thing. Now, that little fuse box is not going to be able to handle 5 more in one little circuit. So what we're going to do is actually install a relay. Now, relay is fantastic. I love these things. Basically, all it really is a big giant switch with a little bit of current goes in here, pushes the arm down, then you get full current. You're not running 30 amps through a little tiny little nothing in the fuse box that we're going to connect to. Now we're going to run some wire. Now it's going to be fused. Make sure you put your fuses in there. Run that wire all the way up into the engine bay, where we're going to be mounting this little guy. And from here, we're going to go out to 10 amps, 10 amp fuse to the front locker, 10 amp fuse to the back locker. But it's all going to be run from one relay. All right, so we're inside the Jeep. How are we going to actually control these guys? Well, this is what I got. So I have a panel that I have all the way across here, and you got front lights, rear lights. We have dome light. Actually, I'll turn the dome light on so you can see a little bit better. And then we have a couple other ones, and these are all pretty much dead. So I'm going to start on this side and do front locker, rear locker. So those are the switches that I'm actually going to use. But how am I going to get power? Well, I'm gonna crawl underneath this very dark dashboard and show you. All right, so you have your fuse panel right here. This one right here is for my blower fan. As you can see, I got a little tab right here, and if you can check it, okay, you can use a little test light to actually check to see whether or not you have it on or not. So you have 2 terminals, one there and one there. One's hot and one's not gonna be hot, so it has to go through the fuse. We wanna go through the fuse because we don't wanna have to start a fire. So you put your little test light on there, and as you can see, it does not light up. All right, now I have the ignition on. I'll put up here and boom, I have my light. All right, I was sitting there trying to explain it on camera, but it kind of didn't make much sense. So what I did was actually drew a quick schematic on some cardboard. Sorry, I ran out of space, so I ran over some letters, but work on that in a minute. But anyway, so this is basically how I'm gonna hook it up. You can hook it up the way it hooks on the book. This is the way I'm gonna do it. All right, so if you look right here, you got the switch 1 and switch 2. This is going to be the ones that are inside the cab, or inside the center console. One pin will be going up here to the locker 1. Pin this pin will go to locker 2. Now how we're going to power these guys, it's going to come up here to the fuse box, which would be this guy right here. And then what's going to be powering this fuse block would be a relay. Now the relay is connected to ACC, and that comes from the fuse box. So this will trigger this on and off. As soon as you got the ACC on, boom, we have power. Everything that's on this fuse box will have power. I just need to make a little pigtail in order for that to work properly. And then this is actually going to be going straight to the battery. Now the battery is also going to have a 30 amp fuse right there. Sorry I didn't draw it in there, but that's what it's going to have. Because you don't want to run any line without a fuse. Please put a fuse in it. We do not want to get stories about you burning your stuff down to the ground. Alright, so that's enough explanation. Let's get underneath the truck and actually run some wires and see where we actually have to connect our connectors on. And not throw tie wraps at myself. Alright, we are underneath the Jeep. This is the front axle, and these are the wires that we need. Now, it doesn't really make a difference which one's positive, which one's negative, because, hey, they're both black. Anyway, if you look in the back here, they got a little rubber grommet, and that's actually going to keep it watertight. So we are going to stick that in until it comes all the way out to the edge. Do the same thing to the other side. Now, once you get this guy right in there, you see you got both of them right there, you're going to go and put your locker in there. Now what this is going to do is lock everything in place, and boom, you cannot get that out. Now, once that is in place, now, the kit actually comes with these little plastic protectant coating. So we want to make sure that is over these wires, because you do not want to get this thing messed up. We're going to have to tie these up probably to the drain, to the vent line, so that it will go up to the chassis. And then once you get to the end, just cut off whatever you don't need. And there you go. All right, now it looks a whole lot better, almost professional. Now, you can go grab your big long wire. And you're going to take your big long wire that comes with the kit. And then, whoop, wrong way. There you go. Now we're connected. So now what we have to do is actually find a route that we're going to get this all the way into the cab to where my switches are. All right, we are in the driver's side, and what we need to do is actually get power to our relay. Now what I'm going to do is actually color code it. I'm going to use yellow wire to go to the relay. So as I have 3 wires going through the firewall, I'll know exactly which one's which. So they have our wire. Now, the kit comes with these little female connectors, which these things work pretty well. They are on the cheap side. Now, the only thing I don't like about having this coming out of the fuse box is that it doesn't have any insulation. If you touch it, you can ground out and actually have a problem. Now, I would highly recommend getting some crimps like this. These strippers are fantastic. I love them only because, bam, just stripped it. In order to make one of these little connections, we're going to screw that on. Now, before you actually put this crimper on there, or the connector, make sure you have some heat shrink. Heat shrink will actually come up and wrap around that and actually cause a little bit of insulation. Now, on these crimpers, and also strippers, they also have little crimps down here at the bottom. Those things will work great, but they're a pain in the butt. So I got my old-fashioned, these actually belong to my dad. So we are going to crimp this. So it's on there, not going to go anywhere. So I'm going to put my heat shrink way up here on top. All right, so we have it right up there on top, and you shrink that up. Now you got it insulated. Now you can actually put that in. I gotta go find my torch. All right, we heat shrink. There's a couple ways of actually doing it. One, you can use a torch, like I'm going to use, or you can use heat guns. You can use lighters. You can use whatever you want. All you gotta do is heat it up. There you go. Anyway, I'm gonna hook this on underneath to that connector I showed you earlier, and then we should have power up to our relay. Yeah. All right, welcome aboard the CJ. So what we have to do now is actually take our wires and actually go up to the console here, so we can actually get to our switches. So let's get the panel off. That panel. Take this off so I can actually get some wires up here, and then actually we'll configure 2 switches for lockers. All right, well, I went ahead and took the passenger seat out just so you can actually see it a little bit better. And not only that, I kept cutting up my hands. It was a tight squeeze. This thing does not have a lot of room, especially since I put the cage in here. But hey, this is what we got so far. So the big, thick gray cable, which had this insulation that was sitting on top of it. Yep, you strip that back and then boom, you got yourself a white cable, and you have a black cable, which I have down here as a central ground. Now it is connected to the cage, connected to the body, which is connected to the battery, which we have a good ground. So I have two black cables kind of coming up here, and they're tied in with the two white ones. So the two white ones, I put a little piece of tape over here. This will be the front, this will be the rear. Now this is what we're gonna need to switch on. And then these two here are my power for each one. Now I'm gonna do front is blue, green is back. Now I'm gonna crawl on the other side, and let's hook them up and button all this up so I can get into the front. All right, so we got our two wires coming in, and I'm just gonna go ahead and snip that. All right, like I said before, we're gonna try to color code it. I got it yellow as power going in, and then each one of these are gonna be something different. So green might be front, and blue for the rear. So what we wanna do is make sure you get your heat shrink on. That on. Could do is actually run one wire, maybe do, now these are 14 gauge. I could have run it like a 12 or something like that and actually run a 20 amp fuse, which will go, and then I could have just split it off to both switches. I didn't really want to do that. I was just gonna go ahead and leave it separate just in case I have to do maintenance on it or anything like that. I can actually trace it down. All right, so we have both connections all ready and looking pretty. Look at that. All right, so we're gonna grab our switch panel, which blue will be on this one. There we go. And green will be on this switch. All right, so we have our panel. So my power is actually going to come to these little connections right here. Your switch might be a little bit different, but this is the way this switch panel is actually configured. So I took off the other feed because this entire panel gets fed off of the main feed coming in, and I have that connected directly to the battery. Didn't want to have that on these two because we want to have it for ACC. So I just replaced two power leads for both this switch and this switch. The other two are nice and insulated, and I have those tucked away so it should not be getting in the way. And then what we're going to do is actually cut down the locker cables, the big ones, and actually connect it here and here. So I'm going to do that now, and yeah, then we have some lockers. All right, we're underneath the truck or the Jeep. And I'm sorry that I do not have a lift, so I am on my back. So here's the wire that's coming out of the locker. I have it tie wrapped over to my, oh, I got a couple of tie wraps. I got to cut clips, cut tails. Anyway, so I hooked it up, I tied it to the vent tube, which has enough droop in there. So if I droop all the way down, it's not going to pull the wire. So that's one thing you definitely have to keep an eye on. The suspensions are going to go up and down, and you don't want to get that too tight. And then I have that running all the way to inside. Now the back side is pretty much the same thing almost. You got the wire coming straight out. I have a tie wrap to a brake line actually, and then that goes over to the vent tube, which kind of comes up, and then there's slack here for drooping out or anything like that. And I actually use some really thin tie wraps to actually hold that up there, so hopefully that will break away if it needs to. But I went ahead and followed the electrical lines and a couple fuel lines all the way to the front. All right, let's look underneath the hood and see exactly how we wired this up. You saw it on paper, you saw it on cardboard. Now you're gonna see it in real. So we're taking a positive off of the terminal. We do have a waterproof 150 amp breaker. Right now it's turned off because I'm charging the batteries, and it's just sitting here, not doing a darn thing. But if you follow the line, it comes all the way in here, and then it will power one of the relays. Switch power is going all the way down, whoops, going inside and under the dash, and actually going to the blower fuse that is actually in the fuse box. Now that one is an ACC source, so as soon as you turn on ACC, boom, this relay's on, it comes up here and powers the fuse box. Now the yellow wire, which is the load wire, it actually comes up here. I made a little pigtail, so I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So basically in, droop in, droop in, droop in, droop in. Goes into my fuse box. All right, so we have one fuse for the rear, one fuse for the front. And also I have my color coded. And that one is just tie wrapped in. Always tie wrap your stuff. Don't let it just dangle, because then it gets caught on everything. So anyway, let's go ahead and button it up real quick and get it out there and see what we can do with it. All right, so we're gonna test to see if it actually does anything at all. I do have the front hubs locked. I got the front locker, I got the rear locker. Let's try to do the rear locker. Now I'm on pavement. It's not gonna be the greatest test. Hopefully here soon I'll be able to get on the trails and actually test it for reals. All right, let's see what we got. Turn it on. Boop. Just look at that rear tire. We'll try to do a turn. Feel it binding up. Now let's unrelease it. Boom. There you go. As soon as I released it, it actually came back true, so that it, yeah, rear seems to be working. Let's try the front. All right, so now the front one should be locked. Let's find out. All right, so the front seems to be doing something. Hopefully it's doing something right. But we'll check it out. We'll check it out much better when we actually get it on the trail, get it on some dirt, and check it out. But yeah, let's wrap this up. You guys got to get your own stuff ready so you guys can get on the trail. I got lockers. All right, so that was a very simple way of actually wiring up your Jeep for your Auburn E-Lockers. It's just a 12-volt system. I went ahead and did it a little bit different than what they had in the book, but if you do it by the book, it's totally fine. They give you all the parts that you can actually use. They give you the switch, they give you the fuse, they give you the wire, they give you all that stuff. It actually is pretty decent. The only thing you really have to watch out for is when you're stripping back this guy. Now, I just use my knife. They do have different tools out there to actually use. One advice to use is go ahead and hold it over and just crease it. And then hold it, keep squishing it until it actually breaks. Keep cutting all the way around, because if you just saw into it, you're actually going to cut into both insulations. You don't want to do that. So if you have it scored, when you fold it, it actually rips open. The outside there is like some sort of a PVC plastic, and then there you go. So when you pull it out, your inside wires are still intact, and you only cut the outside. So you have to be careful there, because you don't want to keep nicking the inside insulation. So yeah, try that out. Anyway, check out all the other stuff. Check out when we actually put these lockers into the axles, the AMC20, Model 30, and then this one, how to wire it up. Now we're all ready to go. Take it out to, in our case, URI, and see if they work. Anyway, yeah, take a look at all the other stuff. Don't forget to go ahead and subscribe. It definitely helps out the channel, and I appreciate it. I appreciate all of you for subscribing to this channel and actually listening to me talk and ramble on. Hey! Anyway, take it easy, have fun, and keep building.